Hey guys, Jared from the Vinyl Corner, and today we are going to be looking at all of the stuff that I picked up in the month of November. So if you guys know me or my other endeavors, I've obviously had a personal channel where I've done vinyl pickups for like well over a couple of years now. But I felt like it was kind of redundant to have two channels, especially if I'm going to have a vinyl channel. Like, I shouldn't have another channel for a vinyl related video that happens once a month when I could just bring it over here. So yeah, that's why this is getting transferred over here from now on. Unless you guys just ragingly hate it, then I'll stop, but I really don't see anybody having a problem with it too much, considering the basis of this channel. But yeah, last month was one of the craziest months for my life in terms of how busy I was and how many records I bought. I work at a record store and we bought a gigantic collection, and over the month I managed to amass quite a bit out of it. I had a bunch of pre-orders come in, some Discogs stuff, I went to other record stores, so yeah, I have a ton of stories to tell, so let's get into this before it becomes like an hour long. I'm going to rifle through these first ones pretty quick because they're all King Gizzard related. If you guys do know, they reissued their first 5 albums on vinyl, but this is not a part of that. This was actually just something else random that I found. This is an alternative cover version of their album Polygondwanaland. You guys know they gave this album away for free. They had fans do whatever they want with it, so that's pretty cool. This is the Fuzz Club edition on the limited edition clear vinyl. So yeah, there was a black pressing of this. This was more limited. I'm not sure what they were limited to necessarily, but yeah, love me some King Gizzards, and I love alternative cover art, so I had to grab this one. So getting into the reissue series, again, I'm not going to talk too terribly much about all of these, but yeah, the first one being 12 Bar Brews. I had the bootleg of this, so I had to own it because I want to support the guys, and obviously they deserve the money. So yeah, this one comes on green with a red label, so really nice contrast colors. Not one of my favorite King Giz records personally. I know it's a cult one among most other fans, but it's just one that definitely hits me lesser so than a lot of the rest of their albums. But yeah, again, very happy that they finally reissued all of these. So next up is the Oddments reissue. Again, pretty much the same thing. All of these sound fantastic, and they're very well presented, well printed. Also, I love the attention to detail that they took. They actually put like the barcodes as like peelable stickers on the outer sleeves, so that, you know, you can like scan it into Discogs and then chuck it so it doesn't look ugly, and I appreciate that little bit of thought that went into it. This one is purple with like the same orangey red label, and this one actually has like a fun little sleeve talking about all this stuff going on with this album, how Stu feels about it and all that stuff. So yeah, again, this was one of the ones that I had the bootleg for, so obviously I had to get it to actually support the guys. Then we have the Willows Beach EP. I actually ended up with 2 copies of this. I ordered one from a website because I wasn't sure that I was going to get my copy from where I ordered it from, and then they both arrived the same day. So that's pretty cool, I guess. Not a bad thing to have an extra of these early Giz reissues. And then this one is kind of the inverse of the 12-bar red vinyl with green inner label, so really cool. I find this one to be really underrated personally. I definitely prefer this to, say, like 12-bar brews and like Sketches. It's not absolutely one of their best, but it has a really fun atmosphere, and I like the surfy elements, so definitely the one I think most people were excited for. This is Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. This is definitely like one of the fan favorites, definitely one of my favorites in their catalog, and they definitely knew that this one was anticipated because this one came with a gigantic ass poster along with everything. It's really trippy, really awesome. There's the front side, and then the back is this iconic picture that a lot of people associate with them. So yeah, really cool, and I will get to the vinyl in a second, but yeah, this was when they kind of dipped into the psychedelic scene more, especially the first song on here, Head On Pill. It was just like, wow, you guys went from garage band to this in like no time at all. This one is on yellow with red labeling. So again, very cool. Like I said, all these got extreme attention to detail, so if you're into King Giz and you like any of these albums, I would highly recommend it. These aren't the pre-order exclusive ones. I was not going to pay Australian shipping for those. But yeah, these are the standard store editions, but I got them pretty much all at once, so that was really nice. And yeah, again, really happy. And the one I was the most personally excited for out of this reissue series, this is Eyes Like the Sky. I feel like this album is super underrated. Again, I love the spaghetti western style. My only complaint about this is I absolutely don't care for this redesigned cover. The original is so awesome to me, and I find this one to be kind of garish and like, I don't know. If you guys don't know, this is what the original looks like. At least they put it on the inner sleeve, which I appreciate, but yeah, I definitely prefer that image to what's on it now. Especially since this was the most limited of the originals when they were originally put out. Orange and red labeling, so again, very nice. But yeah, I think this and Willoughby's Beach, when they did their initial pressings when these albums came out, were the rarest. So I was kind of hoping that because they are so rare that they were going to reissue it with their original covers. But, you know, King Giz is becoming big, so they could definitely do something like that in the future. If they ever make a version with the original cover, I will definitely be sliding in my collection. Getting into some pre-orders that I received. First up is JPEGMAFIA's Veteran. Now, if you guys follow my personal channel, you'll know I already own this album, but it's actually the other version with the Veteran ID. I much prefer this. This is the cursor cover, so yeah, one of my favorite albums of the year, one of the more creative ones. Not too much going on with the packaging, but it does come with a download code. But yeah, this is just some really all-over-the-map, fun, dark, really interesting experimental hip-hop. Lots of poppy elements, but a lot of downtrodden moments, very real moments, very just treacherous stories, and some really fun anecdotes. So yeah, if you guys are into glitchy, trip-hoppy type rap, definitely give this one a shot if you haven't. Next up, this is my pre-order for Kikagaku Moya's Masana Temples. Sorry if I completely butchered that. But yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic kind of jammy, improv-y, psychedelic record out of Japan. I don't know how I got turned on to these guys. I remember seeing the cover and thought it was absolutely beautiful, so I decided to check it out, I believe. I forget whose page I saw it on, but yeah. This is an absolutely amazing packaging going on right now. I love all of the artwork surrounding this album. And yeah, this is a really nice thick press. Some really, again, ornate labeling going on here. So really nice that they focused on little details like this. It's always appreciated, but yeah, absolutely fantastic album. If you guys are into bands like the Grateful Dead, you know, more jammy bands, but very still into their psychedelic element, definitely give this one a shot. Next pre-order is for Horrendous's newest album, Idol. Now, I had never listened to these guys before this album dropped, but I remember seeing this album on a newly released album forum, and I absolutely loved the cover, so I checked it out. And god damn am I glad I did, because this is definitely one of my favorite things of the year. This album is just some really fantastic, like, progressive death metal. Again, if you guys are into bands like Death along those lines, these guys are definitely rising stars of that genre. This is one of the better metal releases I've heard from the decade, in all honesty. It's just got such interesting ideas going behind it, and like where these progressions lead and how they form up to these climaxes is just really fascinating. So yeah, this is the black pressing. These were limited to 600 copies, so yeah, very excited to have this one. Definitely one of my more favorite releases of the year. And the last of my pre-orders, this is Daughter's newest album, You Won't Get What You Want. This is definitely going to end up as either my first or second favorite album of the year. Huge shout-outs to Retro Games Vinyl and Beer. He put me on to Daughters like a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point. And yeah, being a fan and walking into this as my first new release in their catalog was probably the coolest thing ever, because this album is flawless in every regard to me. This was one of those years where just so many great albums came out, but literally my top 3 albums are all some that I would consider like flawless, like 10 out of 10 albums, and this is definitely one of them. So yeah, this is the London Fog pre-order exclusive. It's like gray and white, kind of smoky, a little opaque, but it's like kind of showing up more solid due to the lighting in here right now. But yeah, absolutely fantastic album. This is just some really incredible noise rock, industrial, kind of no wavy. If you're into bands like Nine Inch Nails, Swans, just noise rock shit in general, this is definitely a modern classic and one that I think will go down as one of the better in the history books. This was actually a gift from a friend. I bought him a CD of this kind of hard to find Slash album because he absolutely loves Slash. And he told me that he knew I liked King Crimson, so he offered to give me this. He said he found it at a record store for like $5 and he just wasn't really into it. So yeah, it's not exactly the best shape. This is ATLiens by King Crimson, by the way. I'm sorry if I didn't say that. But yeah, this is a weird, different cover. I forget what the pressing and stuff on this was, but I looked it up. It's something very bizarre. But yeah, not exactly the best shape in the world, but again, I traded a CD for it, and it was one of the last Crimson albums I was looking for. So eventually I'll get a nicer copy with the Galaxy cover, but it's cool to have this one to be able to play it. And another gift, this was from my younger brother. This is Shinings v. Halmstad. I'm sorry if I absolutely mispronounced that again. But yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite black metal albums. They just reissued it this year. This is the 2018 press, and it's on this really beautiful black, white, and gray splatter. But yeah, I had to send my brother something, and I sent him a little something else, and he decided to get me a gift in return and asked what I wanted, and I told him this. This is a super thick pressing. Like, I don't know if this is just 180 gram. It feels way heavier, but yeah, just an absolutely brutal, dissonant, haunting black metal album. One of the more interesting approaches to screaming in black metal as well, like when he does his little screeches and such. So yeah, this is a really great black metal record. If you guys are trying to get into the genre, this is definitely one of the major classics, at least to me. This is a band that I just got into pretty recently. This is Combat Wounded Veteran with I Know a Girl Who Develops Crime Scene Photos. I discovered this band like 3 or 4 months ago. I was going through a really heavy Nails phase, and I was trying to find other bands that sounded like them, and I kept hearing about this band, and goddamn, am I glad that I got into these guys. This is just some absolutely ferocious, blast beat filled, intense, like grindcore-y, hardcore punk, like it's all over the place. This is a second pressing, and it's on a pink vinyl. I didn't buy it specifically because it was pink vinyl, but it was cool. But the original color saturation of the cover on the first pressings is different, and I think it looks horrible personally. So yeah, I wanted to get it with the cover and the color saturation that I knew it from, and it coming on pink vinyl and only being $10 was definitely a selling point. That last one was a Discogs purchase, as is this one. This is King Crimson's 3 of a Perfect Pair. This is an original pressing on Warner, still in the shrink. But yeah, you guys know I absolutely love King Crimson. Eventually I want to do a really in-depth video on them in the future. But yeah, they have like 10 albums that I personally enjoy, at least to a decent extent. And this was one of the last ones that I was looking for in my collection before I got that copy of ATLiens. So I really have most of the ones that I would really like for my collection as of right now. Not to say that this album is like a masterpiece, especially not comparatively to other Crimson stuff, but I like the Adrian Belew era. I feel like this album had a lot of great ideas. It just doesn't flush out fully. But the last song, the follow-up to Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 3, is worth the price of admission alone. If you guys aren't into King Crimson, I highly recommend getting their stuff. It does suck that they're not on streaming and that Robert Fripp is an asshole like that, but like I highly recommend go pick up a CD, a record, buy the digital download, get into King Crimson, experience one of the most interesting, progressive, and just forward-thinking bands of all time. Another Discogs purchase, this is Crass, The Feeding of 5000. This is the second press on Crass Records, and I specifically wanted this one because if I remember correctly, the first pressing of this is missing the song Asylum. And that, you know, that song is part of the album to me and its whole vision. So I definitely wanted to have it on there. So yeah, I think I paid like $40 for this, but this thing is pretty much mint shape. I mean, the record is absolutely fantastic. Again, on Crass Records. It's a little hard to show on camera, but like the old school stylings of like the punk sleeves with all like the newspaper articles and such. It's like such a badass aesthetic look to me. So yeah, try and show it off a little bit better. But yeah, really cool. Again, if you guys aren't into Crass, they are one of the most interesting punk bands out there to me. Their anarchistic philosophies and their style of playing was just very raw, visceral, kind of, I bet scary at the time for a lot of people, because they were kind of like the first punks that incorporated the idea of anarchy and not doing it just to shock people, but because they genuinely believed in it. The second to last Discogs purchase, this is Brian Eno's Ambient 1 Music for Airports. I've just been looking for this album for like years now, and I finally came across an original for a price I was willing to pay in the shape that I wanted. So yeah, again, this is an original on PVC. Those beautiful inner labels there, part of the whole beautiful aesthetic that is this record. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. This is the kind of the album that coined the term ambient, and even on the inner sleeve, Brian Eno gives a little dialect about what exactly ambient music is. It's pretty interesting, and I love that he included it, because I'm sure this was, you know, kind of hard to take in for a lot of people of the time, because it was just so different. So yeah, Eno, just one of the most absolute genius people to ever touch music. So many forward-thinking ideas. And that was just one of very many. And the last of the Discogs purchases, this is a holy grail status record for me. This is Hella's Hold Your Horses. This is an original on Frenetic Records, and if you guys know anything about this, they pressed it like once when it came out, and they're super hard to find. They're very expensive when they do go up, and yeah, I got actually kind of good deal on mine, and mine is still in the shrink. Literally everything about it is absolutely perfect. So yeah, really love the inner sleeves here. You know, Hella, if you guys don't know, was the group, or the duo rather, that Zach Hill of Death Grips was in before Death Grips. And yeah, pretty much anything Death Grips related to me is usually pretty solid, but this is definitely one of my favorite Death Grips related projects as a whole, like even including the Death Grips canon. I absolutely love this album. It's just extremely breakneck pace, but it has so much finesse and personality and character and color to it. It's just a really great balance of chaos and control and fun and aggression. It's just all over an absolutely incredible piece of music, and I'm very, very happy to finally have it in my collection. So the next three records I got at Double Decker Records. I was in town for some work, so I decided to stop by and visit, and this is Isaiah Rashad's Sylvia demo. If you guys know me, I really love Isaiah. I've been waiting for his albums to get bootlegged for a while, and apparently they did late last year, and I had just never caught wind of it. But I went to Double Decker, and they had like 2 or 3 copies of this, so I had to grab this one. But yeah, I much prefer his second album, The Sun's Tirade, but unfortunately the bootleg for that has an awful cover, but eventually I'll probably get it, just because I really don't see that album getting pressed in the very near future. They're both on these like Glacier Blue Clear vinyl over here. So yeah, if you guys are into your chill, downtrodden hip-hop, some vibes for days, some just really nice kind of spiritual bars going on, a little bit more self-reflective, a little bit downtrodden, depressed. This is some good shit if you haven't listened to it. His second album, I think, has a lot more character and personality to it, but I feel like just the atmosphere of this album is better. So something I've been on the hunt for a little while now. This is the Boris Pink box set with the cardboard. I'm not going to take this all apart because it's really kind of hard to get back together, but yeah, I love that noise it makes when it snaps out. And then yeah, there's the 3 records in there. But yeah, this is an absolutely fucking incredible, all over the place, but mainly like droney, experimental metal album. If you guys saw not too long ago, I got that Sun Boris collab. That's like one of my favorite drone metal pieces ever. And yeah, very happy to find this. I was initially looking for the pink vinyl copy, but overall I'm really happy I ran into this one, because I feel like it's one of the more interesting things I have in my collection. I don't have too many box sets, especially ones that like fold like this, so pretty cool. And definitely the best thing I found at Double Decker, this is the Angels of Light New Mother. If you guys don't know the Angels of Light, they are connected to Swans through Michael Gira, and obviously Michael Gira pretty much runs Swans. But yeah, this was a side project that he was doing for a long time, and they have a couple really great albums. This is my second favorite of their works, next to How I Loved You. But yeah, I never thought I would ever run into one of these in the wild, but I just so happened to. If you guys don't know, this was made in like 1999, and there was only 400 copies of this pressed onto black vinyl. So, this is definitely something you're not going to see every day, and it was something that shocked the shit out of me when I saw it, and I couldn't say no because I'm never going to see this again. It's a little beat up in, like, the corners and stuff like that, but I paid such a good price for it that I really don't mind at all. But, yeah, if you like Swans and you haven't checked out Angels of Light, listen to, like, How I Loved You and this record. They're both really great, atmospheric, like, progressive, noisy, avant-garde stuff, just like soundtracks and things along those lines. I'm just going to blaze through these next couple real quick because I have a really interesting story and some absolutely amazing shit to show off towards the end. But this is Parliament's Mothership Connection. This is an original on Casablanca, and I got it for $10, and if you know, that's a really good price. Classic funk record. I mean, it's got We Want the Funk on here. What more can you want out of life? But yeah, ParliamentFunkadelic, all the related musical projects, especially in their primes, were just a powerhouse of music knowledge and just absolutely fantastic playing, especially George Clinton as the bass player. Obviously, the dude is a legend for a reason. So yeah, just very cool to have some more funk for the collection. So my boss put me onto this one. This is Love Forever Changes Live. I had no idea that this band ever played this album live in full, but my boss showed me this, and this is a recording from their 2003 Glastonbury show. And oh my lord, if you are into this album at all, especially like to the extent that I am, give this a listen. I think it's called like the Forever Changes concert or something like that on streaming services. But this band that's behind Arthur Lee is so tight. They kind of work with it and make it their own, but they still keep so true to the vision of the original. There's so much charisma and charm going. You can tell that their chemistry is all fantastic. And yeah, Forever Changes is like one of my favorite 60s albums. Like, I pretty much prefer it to any Beatles album. And this is just an absolutely fantastic rendition of it. So I can't recommend this one highly enough. It's like 2 LPs. You can find it on streaming, YouTube, the whole nine. Then we have a 1987 French repress of Minor Threat's self-titled, aka First to 7 Inches. But yeah, I didn't have this color of the cover. This is one of my all-time favorite albums. Eventually, I do want to get all of the cover variations. So when I saw this, I had to grab it. I think I paid like $12 for it. Not in the absolute best shape in the world, but any old school punk records, especially this one, for that price, I am not going to pass up. And it comes with this cool little mini fold-out poster here. So yeah, this is the $4 version, which is stamped on the back, which defines a lot of these Minor Threat pressings, like how much they were in the covers of the colors and such. So yeah, just very happy to have another one for the collection. So getting into mostly what was in this guy's collection, there's a couple stories that I'm going to break up. These were the initial, like, these next 5 were all the first ones I grabbed out of it, like when we were going out, and I was just like, okay, let me prioritize the things that are most important, and then I'll slowly, over time, start to try and grab more. So the first one I grabbed was King Crimson's Red. Now, of course, I already do own this one. It's one of my absolute favorite Crimson releases, but this is an original press on Atlantic. Mine was the repress, so obviously having an original of this is absolutely awesome. But yeah, this is one of their heaviest, their loudest, like dynamically. This record is just absolutely fantastic. The way that they build to these explosions of noise and creativity is just absolutely fantastic. One of my absolute favorite bands of all time, and definitely one of my top 3 albums in their catalog. I can only show off the back cover of this one because it has nudity, but this is a first pressing on Atco of Roxy Music's Country Life. Yeah, there is just a tiny bit of nudity on the cover, and I'm not trying to get this video flagged or anything, but like I said, it's an original on Atco, those really lovely mustard yellow with that color logo there. But yeah, really amazing album. I mean, obviously Roxy Music has one of the best catalogs in music history, with or without Brian Eno. All of their stuff is fantastic. I didn't have like all of the major classics yet. This was the last one I was looking for, so now I pretty much have all the Roxy stuff that I am really looking for, but there's definitely more stuff I would like to have for the collection that's not necessarily the essential ones. Then I grabbed this copy of the Flowers of Romance by Public Image Limited. I am a gigantic fan of Public Image Limited. Of course, I'm a big fan of the Sex Pistols, pretty much anything associated with that group. But Johnny Rotten's debut into the more post-punk thing was amazing, and this is, I believe, the third album in their catalog. You know, second edition / metal box is definitely my favorite. It's one of my all-time favorite albums. And again, this is an original on Warner Brothers Records. I know it's upside down there, but yeah, this is an absolutely freaky, dark, esoteric post-punk album. Definitely one of the more harrowing, noisy ones in post-punk's whole canon. So yeah, this album is an absolute masterpiece. If you're into things like Joy Division and stuff like that, you haven't heard this, definitely give this one a listen. It's really scary, it's very frantic, it's very anxious, but it's absolutely incredible. This was definitely a must for the collection. This is an original pressing of The Smiths' Queen is Dead, and if you couldn't notice, it's actually promotional stamped on there on the front cover. So yeah, I already own this album obviously, but mine is a repress, so I didn't have an original, so to have one that was promo stamped was really awesome for the collection. But yeah, the Smiths, one of my all-time favorite bands, hugely forward-thinking, really early ideas of like indie sad boy stuff, and they still continue to be one of my all-time favorite bands even to this day. So yeah, again, an original on Sire over here. But yeah, just incredible album, one of my all-time favorites, probably my favorite from the Smiths, just like I would imagine most people would agree with that one. But yeah, this is just an absolute classic, and again, to have it promotionally stamped was awesome because my Smiths collection is quite large, but I don't have any promotional stamps, and I have very few originals, so very happy with this one. So the last of the ones that I prioritized initially, this is Cramps' Bad Music for Bad People. This is an original on IRS Records, and yeah, there's not much I can really say about this record. It's a punk classic, infusing ideas of rockabilly and just really raucous, very fun, personality driven. But yeah, again, IRS with the sleeve there and the inner labelings. But yeah, if you guys haven't dove into the Cramps, they have one of the more interesting and dynamic careers out there. This is just a compilation of some of their best stuff, but it's like their most well-known album for the most part. And yeah, this is definitely one of the cooler punk pieces I have in my collection. Definitely one of the harder to find ones that I own as of right now. And yeah, definitely had to make sure this one was coming home with me when we first started sifting through it. So I had a bunch of doubles and stuff I was looking to get rid of out of my collection, and I traded them into the local store, and I got a lot of really cool stuff out of it. The first one being this repress of the 2 demos by Mac DeMarco. They just did these over the summer, and I have pretty much everything Mac related, except I didn't have this one yet, so I was very excited to have this one. These represses were limited to 5,000. And this one is on like a really nice green vinyl, kind of emeraldy, kind of minty. It's a little hard to show off, but yeah, obviously I love Mac, and like I said, I pretty much had everything besides this, so this was a no-brainer. I was looking at originals of these before they announced the repress, and I almost bought one, and I'm really glad I didn't. So yeah, it does come with a download card as well, but yeah, just some fun little quirky ideas Mac had for what would shape up to be pretty much one of his most well-known albums yet. Then I grabbed this We're Only In It for the Money by the Mothers of Invention with the Beatles Sgt. Pepper parody cover. I much prefer this cover to the one that we got generally in most of the rest of the world, which is this cover. But yeah, they just repressed this one recently in 2016, and then they did like a record store day thing. And what I love is they included like the Sgt. Pepper parody cutout like stuff, which I just absolutely love how far they went with like mocking Sgt. Pepper with this cover. And I'm sad that they didn't release it like this initially, but I can definitely see why they didn't. But yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic album. Frank Zappa is one of the most genius fucking human beings to ever touch music, and yeah, this album, very sarcastic, very satirical, very taking the piss out of a lot of society, the music industry, fellow artists, all of that. But yeah, this is just a classic record to me, one of my favorites of its era. So I've had a bootleg of this one for a while, so I definitely wanted to grab a legit copy, and I believe this is a first pressing on Arista. The labels, I'm having a little hard of a time trying to identify the labeling, because a lot of the labels that I've seen on Discogs don't match this one necessarily. There's a couple that are close, so I don't know if this is just a bootleg pressing again or whatever. But yeah, it was produced in '76 from what I can tell, and it says printed in the USA, so I don't know. But yeah, again, I got this one for free along with those other two and the next couple. I'll let you know. But yeah, couldn't say no for free for one of my favorite Patty records. Another thing that was free with all that stuff that I traded in, this is Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz to Come. This is a 1972 stereo repress on Atlantic. And yeah, this is just one of those records where the title says it all. It is a very forward-thinking piece in the jazz catalog, especially for its time. It definitely is exactly its title. It was the shape of what was about to come from jazz at the time, in like the late 50s, early 60s, if I remember correctly. So yeah, absolutely fantastic record. If you guys have never listened to this, this is a little bit more... not necessarily avant-garde, but a little more free jazzy, a little bit more out there stuff, and especially his later stuff would become way more avant-garde and weird. Another free one, this is Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band's Lick My Decals Off Baby. This is one of the more straightforward Beefheart records, but it's very whacked out, very hilarious, very just off the cuff, and again, like I said, this is on Straight Records / Reprise, the subsidiary. So yeah, this record is just bonkers. I love a lot of what Beefheart was doing with the early days. Obviously, Trout Mask Replica is infamous, but there's so many other good Beefheart records, and I own a couple of them. But yeah, albums like Safe as Milk, Clear Spot, this, Spotlight Kid, Doc at the Radar Station. It's just, there were so many interesting albums to come out of this band's catalog, and it's so weird to know that they're only known for the one album, but their other stuff is so good. So yeah, if you guys haven't ever checked out Beefheart, I know a lot of people haven't because Trout Mask isn't on streaming. Definitely listen to like this one. This one is just very weird, very fun, bluesy, hard rocky, just good stuff. So getting down to the last three things I got for free, this is Tom Waits' Mule Variations. This is an original on Anti Records. But yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic release from Tom Waits, one of the most interesting and forward-thinking artists that's out there. He simultaneously has his own vision, but wears all of his influences so much on his sleeve, whether it be accidental or purposeful. But yeah, the dude was just an extreme weirdo. This was his like late 90s, early 2000s era, and he was really going hard with the experimentation with albums like Bone Machine and this one. But yeah, the first song on here, Big in Japan, is like one of my favorite Tom Waits songs. I love how it's produced. It's so weird, it's so whacked out, and it's just more fun, dark, drunk, carnival storytelling from this wonderfully homeless sounding man. I definitely saved the best two that I got for free for last. I traded in quite a number of good things, so I definitely got some good trade credit. And yeah, I got Scientist Meets the Space Invaders. This is not a cheap record or an easy record to find. This is an original on green sleeves. But yeah, this is an absolutely incredible reggae album. I'm not the most knowledgeable on the reggae scene by any means at all. But yeah, as you can see, the green sleeves label, and it came with initially in this plastic bag, which I find to be pretty hilarious. It has like a little bit of like instructions on how to care for your records, and it's really kind of funny and just kind of obvious in a way, but it's just really funny that they included it. But yeah, absolutely fantastic reggae record. Not super into the genre, but this is definitely one that I've resonated with for a little while. I found it initially because I just liked the cover and I was searching for reggae albums, and yeah, I'm definitely very, very excited to own this one. And the last one that I grabbed for free, this is the Replacements Let It Be. This is an original pressing, but what's even cooler is this is actually the very hard to find mispress where they labeled the sides wrong, so like side B would be labeled as side A and vice versa. If this will please focus, because this is actually an important thing to focus on. But yeah, really, really cool. As you can see over here, it says side 2 or whatever, and it's wrong. But yeah, this is an original on Twin Tone, and these represses are these first pressings with the mispress are pretty hard to find, not easy to come by. But yeah, this record was a huge part of my development with music. Lots of high school memories with this one for me, and it still remains one of my all-time favorite albums. And I didn't have an original, so it was even cooler to find it with that rare mispress and to get it for free. These last 3 were just randomly purchased throughout the rest of the month as I was working or whatever. And this first one is a second pressing of Brian Eno's Another Green World. Initially, I thought this was a first pressing, but when I got home and examined it a little further, it was a second press, but no harm, no foul. It's a very early pressing anyways. But yeah, this is probably my favorite Eno record, this or Ambient One. I just feel like there were so many interesting ideas that went on to influence so many bands and the beginnings of so many new bludgeoning genres at the time. Like I said, this kind of had a lot of the early ambient ideas before Eno even made Ambient One. So yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic record. If you guys have never listened to Brian Eno, this is definitely a good place to get into him. It's a little spacey and all that, but it's a really great album on Island Records here. But yeah, absolutely fantastic release. One of the most forward-thinking, absolute genius figures to ever come from music, as I said earlier. And yeah, eventually I would like to own a first pressing of this, but to have a second will definitely suffice me until I find one. So this next one is Son and Scott Walker's Doused. I just want to put into context, this man is pretty much the same age as my boss. My boss is like late 60s, early 70s, you know. And the fact that he was buying avant-garde era Scott Walker and like Son till like the day he died is like awesome to me. It just showed that he was really into music. I mean, the guy had like 1,700 records, all different eras, genres. And yeah, he passed away earlier this year, which is very unfortunate. But just being able to dig through his collection and to see someone who was really on the know and know about music going through all these different decades, like what he had for each decade, was honestly like one of the most fun experiences and one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had with records. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that with my job. So yeah, but anyways, this is the original pressing of this that came out in 2014. This record is absolutely fantastic. I mean, if you don't know Son, they are a drone metal band, and Scott Walker is an absolute genius of a musician. He was very forward-thinking in a lot of his ideologies, especially on his self-titled series, Scott Walker, or Scott 1 through 4. And later in his life, he has been doing very experimental avant-garde things. His newest album, Bish Bosh, has been called the Trout Mask replica of our generation by many publications. So yeah, very weird, off the wall, avant-garde, and it really blows my mind to think that Scott Walker in his 60s or whatever is working with Son in the studio. It's an absolutely great record, and just the context surrounding this one is absolutely fantastic as well. And the final thing for this video, I know this one was long, but it was just so many grails, and I thought I would end off on one of the best things. This is the Minutemen Double Nickels on the Dime. This is an original on SST. But yeah, again, this came from this man's collection. He was a huge fan of punk and like that early scene. I was actually very fortunate. He had a VIP pass to a Johnny Thunder show, and I was given that by my boss, so I am going to get that framed with a picture of Johnny very soon, because that's a very awesome piece. But yeah, again, first press on SST. This is just a great record, very forward thinking for its time, for its genre. Just, it's kind of like almost a lot of hardcore bands like whole discography, but boiled onto one album, and it's just so well fleshed out and recorded and played, and it's just a really fucking amazing record. And this definitely is one of the hardest to find pieces in my collection, especially my punk collection. So yeah, absolutely amazing album. This was not cheap, but I paid for it, and I still got a pretty good deal at the end of the day. So yeah, that was everything. This month was super packed for pickups for me. This is probably going to go down as one of my favorite batches batches of records in a month that I'll ever have in my whole life. Some personal grails, just some things I never thought I'd ever see or even let alone own. So yeah, this was just absolutely fantastic. And so yeah, guys, let me know what your favorite album I picked up was. Let's have some discussions about some of the stuff I picked up. And while you're down in the comments, hit that description, check out all those links, like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, guys, have a nice day.